quoted Dave Ramsey about, you got to tell your money where to go. But to really have a good understanding of your finances and to get a good picture of what you want to accomplish and can accomplish, you have to know sort of what your habits have been so far, what the exact amount of your expenses are, what how many Amazon orders you do per month, or whatever spending habit is your vice, I guess, or hopefully no vice spending habits, I don't know. So how do you do that, Fred?
I use a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I have one tab on a spreadsheet for every year, one row for every day,
One row.
and one column for every expense category.
Okay, cool.
Or income category, or debt.
Okay.
So I can go through and enter in my income column every time I receive income, and every time I make a payment on debt, I put it in another column.
Mm-hmm.
And as I do that, I've got equations written out, so it will update the new total or the anticipated total in the debt column. And the same thing will happen with my bank account. Like it will adjust the bank account down when I make a payment, the debt column down.
Oh, I see.
And the same thing when I make a purchase. Typically do it with credit card. So there are some things that I do by bank always, some things I do by credit card always. And so when I make a purchase in that specific column, it will affect either the bank account balance or the credit card balance.
Got it. Okay. Do you do it based on like the real-time purchases that you're making? You're like, okay, I'm going to open that spreadsheet, or do you do a review at the end of the month, or?
Yeah, it's a couple of times. Typically, whenever I'm curious how things are going.
A good check-in.
But also, yeah, definitely when the statement has just come out and I go through and finish it and by statement I mean the credit cards.
Gotcha.
I go through and fill in everything from the previous statement that I haven't yet.
Okay. Cool.
I actually, I use a color highlight for the row status. One color is where I've balanced the bank account to, and another color for where I've balanced my credit card to, so that I can always know that I've already gotten done with whatever's in the past and never have to like relook at everything.
Okay. If they're both done at the same time, do you change the color?
I never do.
Ah.
I always, because credit card always takes an extra like day or two to process anyway. So it's always a day or two behind the bank account.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. I was just thinking, yellow blue.
It's yellow red.
Yellow red.
Should be yellow
A
blue.
little orange. Well done. Okay. You're just much fancier than mine. I also
yours?
have a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Stuff at the top that's budget related, which we can get to another time. It's just like the monthly, so I remember. It's right in my face. Then at the bottom, it's just basically like a running total. And then probably once a quarter, I go through the last few months and color coordinate. Now this is some serious nerd stuff. I color coordinate the expenses based on category so that I can total them up on the side, and then at the end of the quarter I say like, okay, this quarter we've spent X amount on childcare, or childcare doesn't really change a whole lot.
Yep.
But things like groceries, like, oh dang, we were hungry, or whatever, and so I can adjust the budget.
Yeah,
we ate out a lot, or we had friends over a lot, or whatever. We bought a quarter cow, or
Sweet.
We haven't yet.
And a freezer for the cow.
And a freezer for the cow. So yeah, and as far as like the running total at the bottom, I do it every time I get paid, when my husband gets paid, and then anytime I'm like, how's it going in there? Or I'm like, what? That's the total of the bank account? And I go in and I reconcile it. Yeah. Like, no money! So mine's much more of a checkbook.
Okay.
It harkens back to a checkbook. And that's been really helpful to me to just have keeping a pulse on it that much really helps me understand what we're spending, in addition to those once a quarter check-ins, so I can have realistic expectations about what our savings goals or how much we're going to pay off in debt and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to be telling you this with the sole purpose to persuade you to use my method, but I will say having it broken down by column allows you to, every month, you can just highlight that range of cells, and it tells you what you spent that month.
Yeah.
So we actually do have it, me and my wife talk at the beginning of every year about what the annual monthly budget would be. And so I pre-fill in that information each month of what we anticipate to spend in that budget category.
Okay.
And then we reconcile, obviously we get rid of that cell of information when we actually get there.
And that's how much you spend.
But at the end of the year, then we say, okay, on average, per month, what did we spend for every category?
Yeah.
And so then we can adjust if we think we need to based on that, if we think there's gonna be a change in income, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very insightful as well.
Yeah, I think that would save me a lot of time from the month or the quarterly
Maybe.
color coordination. Oh, I did want to mention some technology platforms because not everyone's a nerd like us.
Right.
What do you do with money in your marriage?
It's one bank account. We don't have her money, your money. It is just our family money and budget. If there's things that are out of the ordinary, we do have some budget for just random stuff.
Yeah.
Like we don't know what will happen. Even within some categories, there are some expenses that we still talk about. So, for example, we have a mini homestead, and we often talk about like, okay, well, what if we buy seed for the pasture this month? Okay, that's we'll talk about that and agree on it. Or a new tool, for example.
Is it like a certain amount that you guys like? If you hit a certain amount, you're like, all right, we're gonna talk about this for.
No. I guess so. There's no explicit number.
Sure.
But definitely I have gone just to the store to go get some hooks for the wall in the garage. And while I'm there, I was like, you know what? I'm getting a new axe because I also recently broke the axe. Anyway, so we don't have an explicit number.
Cool. We do not either. But I think that we get a sense of like I'm approaching that range where maybe we also have we share money, and that's how I grew up. Like my parents had the same bank account, and so it wasn't actually until I was in college that I realized that there are families who or partners or whoever that did split money.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So we share a bank account for all bills and everything like that, but we actually both have our own little spending accounts.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So like he's going on a golf tournament soon. He has some money in his spending account that he'll use for the golf tournament. So yeah.
You can do that.
You can do
it
that.
Works.
It's
right.
just as well, and frankly, I don't think Kent would mind me sharing this, but frankly, we started it that way because I was trying to reconcile the budget and make sure we were staying within our budget. And I was like, you spend a lot of money, so this is hard. So it was just easier. And actually, Kent is a firefighter, as you know, and they purchase groceries collectively. And so Kent's actually the one in charge of going and purchasing the groceries, and then they all pay him back. And that also messed with my budget. So
I see, yeah. I do have a reimbursement column.
Ah, there you go.
It happens with us as well sometimes.
Yeah, get that Venmo cash out.
Yeah. Or if we sell something for cash.
And so like Rocket Money, for example, have you heard of Rocket Money?
I've heard of it, but I've never used anything other than spreadsheets.
Also have never used anything other than spreadsheets. So I'm blindly recommending here.
Okay.
But I'm more of just a blanket.
You might want to look into.
Yeah, don't put all your money in. This is more just like a blanket, hey, look out there because there are technology platforms that make that a lot easier. I know the Ramsey Solutions has the EveryDollar app.
Okay.
Did you ever use that one?
We received it as part of like a benefits package from a previous law firm that I was at, but we did not use it.
Got it, okay.
The challenge is that, if I remember correctly, like it anticipates you're using your bank account to buy stuff, and then you have, I don't know, did it have envelopes? I think it had envelope type systems. And
I couldn't tell you.
Anyway, we just pull from columns all the time. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So, if you're somebody who wants to get a hold of sort of like what has been going on in your bank account, there are a few ways to do it. Could be you sit down with your bank statements and a spreadsheet and you just figure it out that way. If you're a nerd. If you're not a nerd, you can do things like EveryDollar. I wrote down Quickbooks. That's more of a business.
I think they have some kind of personal finance version though as well.
Okay.
I don't know.
But those are the kinds of things. EveryDollar, Rocket Money,
Yep.
QuickBooks. Those can help you kind of get a better understanding of like where you stand with your expenses.
Yep.
So
So why do that? I can't remember if we talked about that at the beginning of the. What do you think?
what do I think?
Yeah.
I think
Like,
that.
why do you need to know?
Well, I need to know because I spend money, and money.
Are you saying that as I spend lots of money,
Mhm.
or I have an addiction
Yeah,
to spending money?
addiction. No, I don't think I have an addiction, but money's not real to me
Okay.
on my card.
Because it's your card. Yep.
'Cause
So
it's
the
hard.
envelope system might work for you. Is what you're saying.
Envelope system would be great. I do also tend to spend cash a lot. Although I
Okay.
have $2 in my pocket that
It's
I
not
haven't
gone
spent.
anyway for a while.
Yep.
Okay.
So money isn't. I started it. The
Mhm.
spreadsheet system actually was when I was in college because money was tight.
Mhm.
I was trying to minimize the amount of money that I was taking out for loans, but also live in an apartment, have gas to go home,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So money was very tight. I had to be very particular about the money that I was spending. So I had to keep a good eye on it. After that, I got my first big girl job. I was like, okay, we're gonna spend some money, and. Then it turned into like I do need to keep an eye on where this is going because all of a sudden I don't have any more money and because I've just been spending. So that's why I have done it in the past. There are other benefits to it, but do you want to speak to why you keep an eye on yours?
Yeah, for me, so I grew up, again, I think we talked about this in a previous episode, I grew up with like no money. One of my goals in life was to not be poor when I got older. I did have a paper route when I was young, and I remember saving money for a bike because as a paper boy you need a bike, and I popped the tires on one of my bikes because it was so old. And anyway, I thought I needed a new bike. So I never grew the habit of, even despite that, I never grew the habit of like planning ahead. So when I was in college, I would get money, and obviously I would think, oh, I've got to buy books, and so I'd do the important things first, but then I would buy food, and then I would buy whatever, and I still had money, so I'd never spend more than I had, but I never planned ahead, like, I need a down payment for something big in the future, like a car or a house. I never planned for that, or an investment, for example. I never planned for that. So I always spent within my means, but it meant that I kept my standard of living low because I never strategized long term. And it was a long learning process of just eventually realizing you don't have to just figure out like this month to month, do I have enough money to buy stuff, but 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, am I going to be able to do this thing financially that I want to do? So anyway, I have been able to, for example, right now, allocate money. We paid off a debt on a car, and I've been allocating monthly the same amount towards the next car. And we've only been able to do that because we're thinking ahead now.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, there are other instances where it has also allowed us to recognize where we might be spending more than is reasonable based on our income in a certain category, and try to then set the budget on a yearly basis that way.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Sounds like in all of those instances, having an understanding of what you've been spending, keeping an eye on it, helps you know what you want to do with your money.
And it is always within the context of what is my income. I do think that had I started this a long time ago and incorporated some of the lessons that I learned from some of the financial gurus that I followed, my investments would be far higher than they are now. But I was in a position where I didn't think ahead, I didn't set that money aside, I didn't pay, and so it's also hurt me in that way.
Sure.
I think it would be fair to ask the audience, if not, hey, what are you doing? Maybe you could share that with others, so comment below the post. But I'm actually curious, is this helping anybody?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I'm curious if anybody hears this and thinks, oh, I should start doing something like that. And then you do. And I'm curious what kind of change in your financial life it leads to.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's led to in my life, but I'm curious if it is something that people can do intentionally.
Yeah.
And so that it was worthwhile to listen to the podcast.
I would say like the lowest entry action step on that is probably starting whatever day the audience hears this, put a system in place so that moving forward, they can keep an eye on stuff.
Okay.
And if you're gonna like level up, start looking at the last month of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go really extreme, take a look at the last 3 months, 6 months, year of expenses to see like what's happened with your budget and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I worry for all the people who are cash only that they're not going to have that record.
Sure.
I wouldn't have the record.
Sure. So maybe they are in the place where it's just like low
Start
entry
now.
is
Start
a great
tracking.
place for them. Start tracking, get a system in place so that, even if you don't have the opportunity to look back, you can have something that you're working toward.
This actually does bring up an interesting point. Some of our viewers, maybe not many, but some of them are likely on I'm going to say a cash basis, but that doesn't mean that just they deal in cash, but it also means they don't have a set amount of income. I have one of my children who works 2 or 3 or 4 days a week, and it varies week to week. So if he, for example, was living on his own at this point in time, he wouldn't be able to budget very easily because the income would always vary. And now, obviously, I would tell him, well, maybe get a job that is full time. But
Sure.
that's not everybody has that.
Sure.
And so I do think that there is, who we're talking to is one step up that path of financial independence of people who have a secure job.
Sure.
And so if that's not you, if you don't have a secure job, if you are hourly and your schedule changes week to week, I think there are definitely some strategies where you still want to track what you're doing, but I think there's a big deal of forecasting ahead that you need to do is, okay, there are some basics that you have to pay for, which is your rent, a certain amount of food. I mean, I think you can at least anticipate the amount of food that you guys are going to eat as a family, your car payment, etc. And be sure to allocate first to those things, which you're probably very good at doing because that's how you survive. But if you want to improve your financial situation, then we get into stuff that isn't just necessarily financial, but is also job related. The content in this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of your entire investment. Always conduct your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor or legal professional before making any investment decisions. The opinions expressed in this video are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of Ridge, Angel Funding, or VAS Portal.
Trying to think. I did the introduction into the podcast last. What?
I was going to do the Megan Fed in the morning. No, sorry. Again.
Oh, golly. Okay, there we go.
Welcome
Or I'll edit that up.
We have to stare
Yikes.
up at the sky.
We're
'Cause
back.
It's the aliens, right?
Yeah, from Toy Story.
Yeah. I gotcha.
I can't think of another. They do a couple of those, and I was gonna do it again, but
Ooh.
you have saved our lives. We are eternally grateful. Pixar's gonna sue
Cool.
me.
Just don't add it in the video.
Fine.
Be safe.
I won't.